Hi folks, welcome to your Gersnet immediate post-match reaction pod, coming to you in association with Forest Precision Engineering. My name is Alec Anderson, and as Hugh McIlvanney once overheard a senior reporter saying to a cub reporter in the Old Trafford press area after a particularly brilliant George Best goal, don't worry about the time, son, just check the date, just take a note of the date, and it's Thursday the 14th of December 2023. I like my European football. The boys in Gersnet are really nice to me. I go on other Gersnet podcasts, the Sunday night flagship show or other Friday night preview pods, and sometimes the boys will introduce me like Stato or a resident European football expert. And there's only so many times you can say no, I'm no, but I'm no, without sounding churlish, without sounding ungrateful. But I am not. I'm not a European football expert. I probably know more than most folk about European football, but I'm not an expert. I consume a lot of European football, but I consume a lot of chicken, a lot of roast chicken, a lot of chips, a lot of lasagna, and I don't know anything about rearing poultry. I don't know anything about growing potatoes. I don't know anything about pasta-based Italian cooking. I just consume a lot of international and especially European club competitions, football over the years, and you're bound to pick up a few factoids here and there. So I would just, health warning me, and I've already been making a lot of mistakes all over Twitter tonight about European football, so the health warning is always there with any of the facts I throw at you through the course of this video. Just get onto Twitter and just check that they're actually okay before you spread them to other people. In 1996, because of my proclivity towards European football, when the Euros were staged in England, my mate and I went down and we went to 10 games at the Euros. I'll bore you with that some other day if you're really unlucky, the stories from that. But the BBC, in the build-up to the Euros, because it's been staged in England, they did a beautiful documentary series, which I've still got on a VHS tape up there, with sellotape across the tab, that I recorded at my mum and dad's in Ardrossan in 1996. And it's called Football, Football, and it focused on the European club and the Euros, the international achievements of all the various participating nations in that summer's Euros. And the programme on France, the episode on France, is the one that always stays with me. I used to watch it over and over again long after the Euros had left England. And it's an interview with Michel Hidalgo. Michel Hidalgo scored in the first ever European Cup final, the first ever final of what is now the Champions League, the European Champion Clubs Cup as it was back in 1956. He scored for Stade de Reims. Michel Hidalgo, LeBlanc and Tomplan were the other scorers that day, where they lost 4-3 to Real Madrid in the very first final of the European Cup in the Parc des Princes in Paris. How romantic is that? And that's the stuff I fell in love with when I was a kid. But he became more famous, Michel Hidalgo, probably as the coach of the France national team, the 70s into the 80s. And France at that time were famous for not being able to go all the way. They'd invented all the particularly all European club competition, and through Jules Rimet, they particularly invented the World Cup as well, and the Euros. But yet they couldn't seem to win any of these blooming tournaments. They'd lost the semi-finals of the World Cup in '58 to Brazil. They lost the semi-finals of the Euros the first time they hosted it in 1960. They lost famously the '82 and '86 World Cup semi-final, when both to West Germany, when Hidalgo was the manager. And the West Germans, because the war connotations as well from the Second World War, with Germany having occupied France. But there was also that thing where the Germans were seen as, particularly in that era, being really brutally pragmatic. They were athletes above everything else, really cynical as well. They just do whatever they had to do to win, whereas the French were like the Brazilians of Europe, they used to call them, except Brazil would win stuff. The French were just style, flair, beautiful. Michel Platini, we know him as a crook now, an administrator, but back then he really was. Him and Maradona were the two best players in the world. It was sensational to watch. And in 1982, Hidalgo was talking about how in 1982, and everybody knows this story, 1982 World Cup in Spain, France again lost that semi-final, as I say, of the World Cup. At the time, Euro '96, even they hadn't won the World Cup. France, they weren't the country they are just now in terms of their achievements on the international stage. They'd never even been in the World Cup final at that point in time. And in 1982, they had a sensational side with Platini, Alain Giresse, Tigana, etc. And they lost the semi-final to Germany in the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan Stadium in Seville. In Seville, Sevilla's home ground. They lost it on penalties. They'd been 3-1 up in extra time, and Germany come back. Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, who was half fit, he come on and he started the comeback. The Germans come back and it went down to penalties. And of course, cynical sides have always got the mental fortitude to deal with the lottery of penalties, whereas your graceful, skillful players, they can't cope with it. So the Germans went through, and the self-styled purists, football fans throughout the world, lamented the fact that the French had gone out. I loved the Germans, I must admit, I loved the Germans at that time. I fell in love with them as a kid because they could do what Scotland couldn't do, which was win and just progress in tournaments. But during the course of that game, most infamously, their goalkeeper, the German goalkeeper, Harold Tony Schumacher, had come running out of his goals as Patrick Battiston, the French forward, was clean through on goal and basically threw his backside into the guy's face. He broke Battiston's neck. He was knocked him unconscious. The guy had to go off on a stretcher and a neck brace. He'd lost teeth and everything. And amazingly, Schumacher wasn't sent off. And this was just seen as representing the crime against the beautiful game that was Germany winning this game against the French, who could never seem to go all the way in major tournaments. And then in 1984, 2 years later, the French hosted Euro 84. And they won it. And they won it in the Parc des Princes. They won the final in the Parc des Princes against Spain, which was a bit of revenge for Hidalgo, I think, for what happened to him in the very first European Cup final as a club player. But in the semi-final, they played Portugal in Marseille, and it was 2 each deep into extra time. The Portuguese just weren't letting it go. It was end to end. It was going to go either way. Really famous commentary from John Watson. The game, it wasn't shown live in Britain, that tournament, except for the actual final itself, because no home nation had qualified for it. The really famous John Watson commentary, Tigana, Platini, goal! I've not seen a match like this in years, and it was amazing to watch as a kid. Even just in highlight format, the French eventually come through and they eventually won this game against the Portuguese in Marseille. You know, the Marseillaise is their national anthem, and the place is going absolutely crazy. Fantastic. They're into their first major final, and of course they won that final as well. And it was seen as that was the turning point. They were laying the foundations basically for them winning the World Cup in 1998 and becoming the nation they are now. But Hidalgo, he did the interview in French, obviously it's subtitles, but there's two bits that really stood out for me, lovely passages where he talked about one of the group games where Platini, who dominated the tournament, scored a ridiculous amount of goals. He almost won it single-handedly. He'd scored a hat-trick against Yugoslavia and San Etienne, and Platini had been a club player with San Etienne, and it was a perfect hat-trick. And I remember just Hidalgo saying, pied gauche, pied droit, in a tête. Apologies for French speakers, but it was left foot, right foot, in the head. That's lovely. But the other thing he said about that semi-final against the Portuguese in Marseille, he called it the return ticket from Seville. That was a return ticket from Seville, he said, and I thought it was beautiful, and I never knew how much that would apply to me, that phrase, and I never knew we would get a return ticket from Seville. I didn't get to Seville. I didn't get to the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan Stadium, thank goodness, in 2022, because I would probably have died. Being so grossly overweight, being bald, being a baldy ex-ginger, a baldy ex-leper. I would definitely have had bevies in the town centre, and if I wasn't able to get a drink, get water or anything like that in the stadium afterwards, there's every chance, especially going extra time in penalties, and the tension I would have felt watching Rangers going through a game like that live, it could actually have killed me. One of the reasons I didn't go there was I couldn't get my passport renewed in time. During COVID, a lot of us had let our passports slip because we couldn't travel during lockdown, and then the whole country, when you could travel abroad again, the whole of Britain was trying to get their passport renewed at the very time Rangers had reached this European final. I had moved house at the time, at April 2022. I moved into this house that I'm still in, thank goodness. And there's a lot of paper, a lot of admin, a lot of hassle, just a lot of stress involved with that. But I had money left over, and I was going to throw it all at getting a match ticket and getting a flight. I didn't care if I had to sleep in the street in Seville if I could get there. But I couldn't get my passport renewed, and no amount of money in the world was going to make the whole civil service move quicker. So I couldn't go. And I think part of the reason I wasn't prepared wasn't just the house move, it was because in 2008 I had realised that the major need in my life as a Rangers fan was to see us in a European final, and I saw us. I was at Manchester, and Manchester was also the last time I had I'd travelled abroad to see Rangers. The last time I'd gone outside of Scotland to see Rangers, so I didn't really deserve a ticket. There's a lot of Rangers fans. It was only because I saw a lot of Rangers day trippers, a lot of people who hadn't been to a Rangers game in years, suddenly turning up in Seville. They had their tickets for the game, that I thought I am going to get there as well if I get the chance to. But I didn't because of my passport thing. And that led to a strange thing where during the game itself, during the final itself, I'm watching it on television in the same room that I watched this game tonight. I didn't get too overexcited. I didn't get too excited because in the back of my mind, when we took the lead, when Joe Aribo scored against Eintracht Frankfurt in Seville in that game, we took the lead, a part of me was saying, but you're not there. How are you going to feel about this if Rangers become the first Scottish club to win 2 European trophies, to win 2 European competitions? How are you going to feel about that not actually being there? And that was a wee quick, and it kept me kind of focused. But like a lot of Rangers supporters, like every Rangers supporter I talked to about the 2022 Europa League final, I haven't processed it. I haven't really processed what I went through. I live with it every single day, but I don't think about it. And it's not Aaron Ramsey missing the penalty. It's not Alan McGregor, as he said in that recent video that went out via UEFA, failing to save a penalty. When saving penalties is what Alan McGregor's probably most famous for. It wasn't that bothered me. It wasn't that I couldn't deal with. What I couldn't deal with, and that's what I mean by not being able to process it, was the moment where Kemar Roofe, just knowing that Kemar Roofe, if he'd been fitter, if he'd been 1 minute fitter, we would have won that European final. And the moment where it looked like the ball might have gone out, but it didn't. And Kemar Roofe probably wouldn't let it go out, and he pulled it back. He picked out Ryan Kent, and Ryan Kent missed from point blank range with, I think, the last kick of extra time. I've never watched the game back. And it's always made me, I would have almost hoped, I think in my head, I've just tried to tell myself that VAR would have ruled the goal out. VAR would have pulled it back and shown that that Kemar Roofe hadn't kept it in, that he hadn't pulled it back properly, hadn't kept the ball in play, it had gone out for a by kick before he had a chance to square it to Ryan Kent. So Ryan Kent missing from point blank range against Kevin Trapp, that it didn't matter. That had nothing to do with it, because I just can't live with that. I can't live with the thought that we should have scored that goal. Tonight, Connor Goldson, the ball didn't go out. The ball didn't go anywhere near going out when Connor Goldson pulled that ball back into the box. And Rabbi Matondo got his touch onto it, and Kemar Roofe played for the extra minutes tonight, and he got there and he scored that goal. He put it in the back of the net because he's the best fucking striker the Rangers have got right now, and the best finisher I have seen at Rangers for maybe ever. And I'm including Ali McCoist in that. When he scored against Ross County Dingwall this season, I was bringing out all my I said I like the Germans. I really do like the Germans. I'm bringing out all my German international shirts and all my books on Gerd Müller, who's the greatest, no longer Germany's record scorer in terms of total number of goals, but the rate of goals he scored in the days that he played the game when it was properly hard. He's the greatest poacher, the greatest finisher of all time. He's a stats hero of mine, and Kemar Roofe is the closest I've ever seen to that in a Rangers jersey. He did not miss tonight, and I got my return ticket from the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan. I got my return ticket from Seville. When I think now about that moment in that final, where so many Rangers supporters went through so much shit and get slagged rotten for it by every other fan in this country, despite actually suffering in that stadium and beyond the actual result itself. When I think about how Kemar Roofe pulled that ball back and Ryan Kent should have scored it, now I'll have an adjunct, now I'll have an add-on to that. Now there'll be a happy memory to bookend that will come after that. That's about Rangers winning in Spain against Spanish opposition for the first time in our history in the city of Seville, back in that city, and just making history and putting us into the last 16 of the Europa League. and it's just generally been absolutely bloody brilliant and reminding us why you should never slag the players at our club. Also reminding you why I said we should never let Kamar Roof go. Every club should have a luxury item. Every club should be allowed to keep a player who's permanently injured, but when he comes on for 2 or 3 minutes, he will do something special. Ours is Kamar Roof. Keep paying the money, keep him going, get him into the cryo chambers for that bit longer than everybody else. I don't care what we've got to do. If he plays for 20 minutes a season, Kamar Roof, he's eventually going to win as a European trophy. And there's still a chance he could do that this season. And it'll not be the Conference League. That was absolutely magical. We put out Real Betis tonight. We relegated Real Betis into a lower European competition. And part of sorry, I'm full of the flu, guys. I'm full of the man flu, feeling sorry for myself. I'm absolutely pathetic husk of a human being this last few days. But one of the things I was doing, I was trying to prepare for that pathetic preview pod that I put out today, was I watched Real Betis against Real Madrid. The whole of the game twice. So I would know what I was talking about when it came to Betis and how they're progressing. So we beat them at Ibrox, beat them home and away. We beat Betis home and away. And I saw how good they were against Real Madrid. So they hit the post in the last minute of normal time. Isco did. They nearly beat Real Madrid, who are the greatest team in the history of European football. They had Kroos and Modric and a certain Jude Bellingham, who's the hottest property in world football right now, playing for them, scoring for them. Bellingham did on Saturday, and yet Betis went toe-to-toe with them. Betis haven't lost at home all season. They haven't conceded more than a single goal at home in any game all season. We just put 3 past them and beat them. We just beat Real Betis in Seville. It's the first time a Scottish team has been to Seville, the city of Seville, and not lost. Never mind getting a draw. Never mind if we'd got a draw there tonight. Avoided defeat. Every time a Scottish team goes to Seville, be it Rangers or Celtic in the European finals in that city, be it the Scottish national team in 1985 in a qualifier, or a World Cup qualifier, or last month, or October of this year in a European Championships qualifier, there's always a chance, it's always close, there's always a moment you get your hopes raised. Celtic scored 3 goals the last time they were in this stadium 2 seasons ago in the group stages of this competition. They get beat 4-3. There's always hope when a Scottish side goes to Seville in competitive football, and they always end up getting those hopes crushed. And for a long time tonight, I thought Betis were going to equalise again for a third time. Rangers weren't behind at any point tonight. We took the lead 3 times in this game, and I thought Betis were going to equalise probably with the last kick of the ball, and 6.5 minutes of injury time on the clock, despite 5 going up on the boards, and it would be a penalty. There'd been a VAR check on it, and we thought we were going to get away with it, but no, they got the penalty. Then Butland turned it onto the post, and then it just crept over the line, and we were going to both lose position, and Sparta Prague going to top the group. Betis were going to drop to second, and we were going to get into the Conference League, but no, we topped the group. We won the group. And when I'm on Twitter spouting all this negative stuff to keep my feet on the ground during games, if I'm at the stadium, if I'm in the stadium, I'm just putting out positivity to help Rangers. But if I'm sitting watching it on television, I'm on Twitter just tweeting as much negative stuff as I possibly can to circle the psychological wagons and protect myself against the heartbreak that's potentially going to come in the game. Particularly when Rangers are playing so sensationally well that you just want so hard to believe that they're going to win the game. I noticed a little hashtag on Twitter saying Dinamo is dead. Dinamo is dead, and it's that stupid magician guy or whatever he is. Is it Sky? He's doing a programme on that where he's burying himself alive, and this is obviously the publicity is ratcheting up for that. So I've got the hashtag going, Dynamo is dead. And I just looked at it. I was about to tweet this thing about how, when it was 3-2 and there was a minute of normal time left, it's going to be a penalty deep into injury time that's going to cost us this game. And then I just saw this hashtag and I thought, I can't tweet the negativity anymore. That's a sign. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a believer in that kind of stuff, but that is a sign I believe in the football fates. Dinamo, the only time Rangers had ever won a competitive match on Spanish soil, 51 years ago. Franco was still in power. It was still a fascist dictatorship. And the only team we've ever beaten on Spanish soil in competitive European football was Dinamo Moscow in the 1972 Cup Winners' Cup final. That stat is now dead. Dinamo being the only team we've beaten in Spain is now dead. We've beaten Real Betis as well. It was absolutely fantastic night. Rangers just absolutely sensational. This manager of ours, Philippe Clement. I'm on this preview pod today, and I don't want to talk about the game tonight. I don't want to talk about us playing Betis. Mr. European football here. Mr. I love Europe. And I was like, no, I don't want this, because the injuries, Todd Cantwell didn't make the flight. Danilo's out until April, and Cifuentes is losing his appeal. He's suspended for the League Cup final. I'd given up on Europe after that home game against Aris Limassol. I put so much positivity into previewing that game and I was giving it. Who cares about domestic stuff? It's not about domestic trophies. 2 trophies in 11 years. What are you talking about? Look at all the European group stages we've qualified for. Look at the number of times we've got out of a European group stage, and since we come back into the top flight. The way Scottish football is just now in relation to the rest of Europe, when it comes to football, you've got to play like half a league season, 18 games if you're a Scottish team, just to get to a European final. It's absolutely, the odds are stacked against us. It's all set up to stop teams from a country of our size getting anywhere in Europe. So for Rangers to be getting out of European group stages at all, qualifying from groups, that counts for more than the League Cup. That counts for more than the Scottish Cup. And then we drew with Aris Limassol, and I was like, stuff this. We need to win that League Cup on Sunday. I hope we don't lose any more players tonight. Just make sure everybody comes through this game tonight safely. To hell with Europe. It's all about domestic trophies. Bunch of losers. I hope they get the trophy. And now I just don't care. Now it just seems grubby, doesn't it, to be playing Aberdeen in a League Cup final at Hampden. That's just really grubby. It's all about Europe for us. It's all about the clean, fresh air and expansive open spaces of continental soccer for the Rangers, and we will continue as Scotland's only representative after Christmas in Europe once again, the only Scottish team in the last 20 years to win a post-Christmas match in Europe, and we've won a few of them. And I don't care if we don't win another one. I don't care if the last 16 is where we stop this year. Everybody at the Rangers support is so focused on getting ourselves back amongst the domestic silverware, particularly the league title, as long as this helps us towards that. And Big Philip, he comes out and he starts saying things like, well, Jose Mourinho's got a tattoo of the Conference League trophies. The Conference League's not that bad. You're thinking, what a loser. Why is he doing this? Why is he talking it down? Is he just resigned to this already? He's trying to prepare us for the inevitability of us dropping into the tertiary European tournament. Because Jose Mourinho got a tattoo of all 3 European trophies because he's won a lot of them, as I was saying this in the preview pod, sorry. So that's disingenuous, Philip. What are you doing? But no, was it mind games for Real Betis? It doesn't matter. He just keeps oozing. This thing about the glass half full. Do you notice that when Philippe Clement is talking in press conferences and he uses the phrase, I'm not busy with that. I'm not busy with this. I'm not busy with what players we're going to get in January. I'm not busy with what players are injured. I want to talk about the players that are fit. I'm not busy with, how many trophies I want to win and stuff like that. You think somebody would say to him, Philip, that's nice, but the phrase, you're probably best using the word concerned. I'm not concerned about how many players we're getting in January. I'm not concerned about how many trophies I win. But I think Philippe Clement knows that. And he knows that the word concern has negative connotations. Concern sounds a bit worrying. He doesn't want to use that. That's why he's saying, I'm not busy with this. I'm busy with other stuff. Because being busy is positive. The man just oozes real positivity. That's his metal. That's where he shows his strength of character. And this, I was losing it. The number of players we have missing these days. I was losing it today. I was losing it the past couple of days. It's really getting to me, the whole situation with players being unavailable at Rangers. It's a legacy thing. It's been going a lot longer than Philippe Clement's been here. And yet tonight, suddenly, at some point today, I looked at the team that we'd fielded the starting 11 when we beat Betis at Ibrox this season, and I realised that of that starting 11, only Tom Lawrence wasn't available tonight. And that started me feeling a bit better. And then I see Rangers taking the pitch tonight, and I see that Rangers support up in the corner. It's the Benito Villamarin is the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan, but with an extra tier up the top. And it seemed like the Rangers supporters were filling that whole massive top tier. What a lift that must give the players. The manager talked about it. What a lift it gives me just watching it. Well done, all the Bears who went there, who had the guts to go back to that city after what it did to us last time we were there. The return ticket. It was a return ticket. What happened in the game? I don't know. Any positivity I was starting to get from the supporters being there and from the realisation that our squad wasn't as weak as I thought it was, right out the window. When the other negative I've been talking about today was that our best hope of continuing in the Europa League in any capacity, never mind going through straight into the last 16, was if Sparta Prague failed to win in Cyprus. Good chance Aris could take points off him tonight. Sparta Prague were 2-0 up in the first 11 minutes. Thanks very much, by the way, Rory Hamilton, for the way you keep announcing every time Sparta have scored another goal. There's been another goal in Cyprus. Who's it from? Who's it for? Who scored that other goal in Cyprus? Is it Aris? No, it's Sparta. Ha ha ha. That's the way it came across, Rory. Maybe want to just tell us straight away. Sparta have scored. I just announced it. Sparta have scored again in Cyprus. That's fine. Can deal with that. But the taunting and the teasing really wasn't helping. But Rangers helped by immediately taking the lead. As soon as I think Sparta went 2-0 up, Rangers, we better get involved here. We started the game really well with the same kind of back six, if you like, as including the goalkeeper Jack Butland, and then you the four-man defence. We don't have Leon Balogun or Radvan Yilmaz because of the European squad, but so we've got Ben Davies, who plays well in Europe and who practically scored the goal against Betis at Ibrox, kicking Seamus' foot onto it in that game, and he came in and played instead of Leon Balogun besides Connor Golson. Did really well tonight, the two of them. Tav and Barisic as your fullbacks, and it was Cifuentes and John Lundstrom the sitting two in midfield, and you had the attacking three. We had Sima obviously on the left hand side. He is on fire. Young Ross McCausland was on the right, and with Dessers up front, and you're kind of, I think he did well against Dundee. You can see that he's definitely got something. Dessers, one thing he doesn't have is pace, but I think he has just about everything else. And then with Sam Lammers in the 10, because Todd Cantwell wasn't there tonight, and you're like, he's the guy that's, just not flavour of the month at all. A lot of people can't see what he does. I can tell you, he's better off trying to beat every player on the pitch or just shooting from anywhere on the pitch. What Sam Lammers can't do is pass to another blue shirt. He just can't. I don't know how many times he tried to pass to people tonight, and it was straight to a green and white shirt. Maybe he signed for the Rang team. I don't know. But he ended up, he won us a wee free kick in the second half, nearly a penalty, because he just tried to beat everybody. Keep doing that, Sam. Keep doing that, mate, and you'll be absolutely fine. But we started really well, and the Cifuentes and Lundstrom particularly on fire, I thought. And we have this move. I don't even remember what happened. It was the goalkeeper, the Portuguese goalie. He kicks it out, Rui Silva, and it comes down kind of on their left wing deep in their own half. It doesn't go where he wanted it to. Basically, tabs onto it like a shot. He moves it to Ross McCausland, who turns and just goes for me, man. Again, nobody was perfect tonight. Although Goldson and I can't think of Goldson and Davis doing anything too wrong. The two of them handled it in the box, but I can't think of them doing anything too wrong. But nobody was perfect, but everybody was great, kind of thing. Everybody was great. It was that kind of performance. It was that kind of mindset that the managers put into them, just total positivity. And Ross McCausland turned and he piled in to their box, lays it off brilliantly to Dessers, who's got his back to goal, and he's doing the whole thing of holding off a defender. Really classy. Somebody gets a touch on it, and it just spins out to Abdallah Sima, who just knows how to sniff out these opportunities. For a man who's supposed to be playing the left-hand side, he is in the middle where he needs to be. So often he's swept it into the bottom of that net, and you're like, this is good. This is good. We've started well. This is good. Kind of peeling myself off the ceiling, what have you. And I was thinking to myself at that point, they've started with Andres Guadrado, the veteran Mexican, and William Carvalho, the veteran Portuguese player. That's their sitting two, and they're 4-2-3-1. They're too old, and Carvalho's just back for quite a long injury, or back for a few weeks out anyway. Cifuentes and Lundstrom are just going to play them off the park. They're too young for them. They've got too much energy. Well, as soon as we scored, I don't think we got another touch of the ball until Betis had equalised, and Carvalho and Guadrado were really right at the centre of it. I think Guadrado hit the bar, Carvalho went through on goals. It really was a case of we'd upset them, we'd woke them up. They were different level at times, Real Betis, and they're attacking, and you've got Isco sitting as the 10, and he's peeling out to the left-hand side, team up with Jose Perez, really, really crafty player, Perez out in the left of their three behind the big Iglesias. Was he the guy that played against us at Ibrox as well? I think, was it Iglesias his name is? Can't really remember, but he was silky as anything as well, and a big unit, really crafty. They're brilliant at diving as well. They're getting a lot of free kicks that you just wouldn't see players in Scotland getting, the way they're hitting the deck. But they were fantastic, and I can't even remember how their equaliser, the first equaliser, came about, but they scored anyway pretty quickly after we'd scored 4 or 5 minutes later, and you're thinking, yeah, we've kind of upset. Like the boy, it was, what do you call him? It was the fella, the left back, Juan Miranda. He came in at left back for them tonight. He's a class act. He drove it right across Butland, right into the far corner, and you're thinking, okay, right, we're in a game now. We had our little moment, maybe that'll be it. No, he just come right back. Well, we suffered like the next 4 or 5 minutes were pounding us. They just hit the bar as well, But anyway, I don't know, what was it, 20 odd minutes? I've not really actually taken down. I don't even know when the draw is. And it'll no concern us if the draw's tomorrow, because we're missing out the next round. We're missing out the playoff round of 32. But we ended up, we scored again, and I don't know, the build-up was sensational. I can't remember anything about it. I just remember Big Dessers facing up a World Cup winning defender, German Pazea. This guy was winning the World Cup with Argentina. He played the final against Mbappe and all that this time last year for Argentina against France and Qatar. And Big Dessers just took him, the cleaners took out the entire central defence of Real Betis, a defence that's only conceded 1 goal in any home game this season. And he cut inside one-on-one with the goalkeeper from a really tight angle, puts it through the guy's legs, and just nips up to the Bears up in the top corner with the wee wagging finger. That's just what I do. And Rory Hamilton had reminded me, I'd forgotten this, that Dessers had a great record for Feyenoord when they got to the Conference League final and lost that the same season that we lost the Europa League final in 2022. So you suddenly start to think, yeah, we're brilliant in Europe. Why had I given up in this game? And I must give credit, and I can't give credit because I've not taken a note of the guy's name, or I'm assuming it's a guy, I don't know this for a fact. I can't remember. I got lots of great posts, lots of great feedback on the YouTube page and the comment section under the videos. Great, a wee kind of community almost we've got going there, part of the whole Gersnet community. But somebody said to me when I was ranting and raving in the post-match reaction after the draw with Aris at Ibrox a fortnight ago, I was absolutely devastated by that failure to put them away that night. I thought we'd completely chucked it. And somebody was saying, don't worry about it. And it was almost Shakespearean. What did they say? We are to Betis as Aris are to us. Or as Aris are to us, we are to Betis. And it's like, oh, we can be the Aris Limassol to them. We can really annoy them. Aris Limassol only got a draw at Ibrox after beating us in Cyprus. We beat them. We beat Betis at home and beat them away as well. It was absolutely fantastic. Whoever that was, you were spot on, and thanks very much. Thanks for that, for a bit of positivity that I was even slapped about with 2 weeks ago. They equalised again. They did it again. Betis, again, silky stuff, and it was Jose Perez this time. I don't know what was happening. Was Tav seemed amazingly far over. He seemed really deep in his own box, almost in the penalty spot. But Davis and Golson seemed to be playing one in front of the other. So we needed somebody to go over there. Was it Ross McCausland? Was he too slow getting back? And we were leaving Akers in that our right-hand side, and Isco is coming over there and working it with Jose Perez, causing us lots of problems, and Perez puts it in the exact same corner as the previous goal. It just curls it right round. Real silky stuff, proper Spanish kind of goal, and you're like, yeah, this is a hell of a game. Every time we think we're taking the lead here, but we think we're going to do something, they're quashing us, and eventually they will just take over. Gets to half time, Cifuentes doesn't come back out. He's been having a good game. Cifuentes, he couldn't even get to Sunday and his suspension kicking in. He had to go, and I've been making jokes earlier today about how that position in the sitting midfield, the sitting two in midfield beside John Lundstram, is becoming like the drummer in Spinal Tap. And this was the fourth partner that John Lundstram has played with in like about 2 minutes, it seems. Raskin out until next year. Ryan Jack, I don't know, maybe he's going to make it for Hampden on Sunday, we don't know, but certainly not playing for the last few games. And then we get Cifuentes in there, he gets suspended. But he can play tonight because he was suspended for domestic football. No, he doesn't come out for the second half. He get injured as well. And it's Big Sterling's got, at the time I didn't know Cifuentes was injured. I thought, is the manager again, is he chucked it? Is he just assuming we're going to lose this game? And he's putting on Sterling to get him, 45 minutes into his legs ahead of Sunday? Surely not. Not a bit of it. The manager's far too positive for that. And Big Dujon, I'm not going to do the whole thing about he's in the mustard, but he did well. He did really well. As I said, nobody was perfect tonight. There was lots of mistakes, lots of frustrating stuff, especially late on in the game. After we'd got the goal from Mr. Roof in a stadium with only one wee roof and three sides of it. I don't know. I'm losing the plot, folks. It's really late at night, and I've been on the only drink I've been on all night is the Cavonia, the cough mixture. I'm struggling, but I'm absolutely flying as well. But when we were going through on goal 2 or 3 times, hitting them in the counter attack, threatening to make it 4-2 in that last what was it, 5 minutes injury time, 17, 18 minutes after we went 3-2 up, the number of chances we had where we could have actually finished the game off and were making bad choices, bad decisions, just encouraging them to equalise, it seemed. My favourite bit was Rory Hamilton and Kenny Miller, I think was it about 15 minutes into the game, saying, I Rangers maybe want to start slowing it down, start trying to take a bit of life out of the game because they've got the lead. We've played for 20 minutes and went at it hammer and tongs and we're winning 2-1 in Seville. I think we'll just keep with this style. Thanks, boys. What game were you watching? That's maybe why Kenny didn't make it as a manager. But well, we're absolutely brilliant. We got away with it. I think the Masonic refereeing conspiracy has definitely got a big international branch these days. They're definitely doing a bit of travelling. The referee, a few dodgy decisions, a few ropey stuff. He get taken in by the diving big time from the Real Betis players, or he was going along with it anyway. But both our centre halves handled the ball in the box, and Betis did look as if they'd gone 3-2 up they put the ball in the back of the net basically, and the fella did punch it over the line. But you've seen them given, as they say, and although we think VAR is making everything really objective, there's still a lot of subjectivity involved. But Rangers weren't the subject of a bad decision, a fatally bad decision tonight. And it's monumental. This is the last, I see this was 104th and final European group stage game. Old style European groups, not 4 or 5 teams. Since they were brought, there was group stages. 3 team groups played in the very first Fairs Cup, which was the forerunner of the UEFA Cup, which is the forerunner of the Europa League. That was back in the 50s. They had 3 team groups, but they come back in 91, 92. They started the 4 team groups, so it's been 30 odd years. We played when the 91, 92. It was a practice run for the Champions League. The Champions League started 92, 93. Really proud that Rangers played in the first ever match day in the Champions League, and that's the thing I've got behind me. That's what that's all about. That poster is for the Bruges game, which is the second game played at Ibrox in a European group stage. But the picture is of Big Hateley after he'd equalised against Marseille in the first ever group stage match that we played in. And I thought when it was 2 each tonight, I thought how that would be quite appropriate if, the first European group stage match we ever played in, we drew 2 each with Marseille, and we had injuries that night. It was young Stephen Presley, I think, squared the body of Rudy Voller for Marseille's first goal. We come back from 2-0 down to draw 2 each. It was dramatic. And I thought maybe we're going to have a kind of disappointing 2 each draw to round it off before we got this Swiss system next season. No, we won 3-2, and an even better result. Even better result. And in the 32, 33 years of European group stage matches, Rangers are by far the most successful Scottish team. Celtic have reached 1 European final. Rangers have reached 2. Still got a chance to do a third in the era of the group stages. But we'll be a goal away from the Champions League. Until 1999, that was the closest any British side had got to reaching the final of the European Cup / Champions League in the group stage era. But it's far and away the closest any Scottish club has got to reaching the final, the big one, in the modern era where the European competition became really expanded and difficult to negotiate. Rangers went down to the bottom tier of Scottish domestic football and just come back and copped another European final. We've been absolutely fantastic. 3 Scottish teams winning in 3 different European competitions this match day. First time that's happened since the days of the Cup Winners' Cup in the 20th century. But Rangers are the only team still remaining in Europe for Scotland. Yet again, we're representing. Yet again, it's just us representing. And nobody wants it to be us that represents, but I'm really proud of it. I'm so proud of it. The European group stage, I was wanting to do a whole thing. I'm taking too much of your time already, folks. I'm struggling, as I say, nasally and what have you. But I want to do a kind of history of the game against Barcelona. We drew 0-0. What a great night that was. The lows, obviously. There was a lot of them. Losing 3-0 to Lyon in that same group stage after us beating them over there. A young guy called Karim Benzema. Whatever happened to him, he tore us apart for Lyon that night. But that put us on the way to Manchester. 104 group games for Rangers. 52 of them played at Ibrox. Now, nobody went to all of them. Nobody attended all the games at Ibrox because 3 of them took place in the COVID season. So that, and we beat Lech Poznan in that group, that Europa League group stage. We beat Lech Poznan in 2020-21, 1-0 Morelos. but we had an epic 3-2 win over Standard Liège and a classic 2-2 draw with Benfica. Two massive names in European football, really romantic stuff, sensational games. It really pissed me off, basically, the old COVID, that I couldn't be at those games, but I'd already missed two anyway. And that was the second. I was having to pay off all my debts to go back to full-time education to get my remedial woodwork degree back in 1992, 93, and I got to the Marseille game, the very first game, but I didn't get to the next two games. And that's why I've got a poster advertising the Bruges game and a pennant that I got outside Ibrox because I lost it at the last minute. I was like, no, sod the bank balance. I went out to Ibrox to try and get myself a spare ticket, but I couldn't. There wasn't one to be had for love, nor the little money that I had, so I had to take my chances. I was going to get back down the road to watch it on the whole game on telly at one time, and I did that. And every time I see that goal, even though I wasn't at the match, every time I see Big Nizzy's shot taking that deflection and going into the Bruges net, I get choked up. It makes me really emotional, despite the fact I wasn't there. That's one of the greatest, arguably the greatest of all the group stage matches played at Ibrox. And I wasn't there. And the only time in our entire history that Rangers have taken the field in 70 years of European football, that Rangers have taken the field at Ibrox, knowing that by the end of the game they could be in the European Cup / Champions League final, was the game against CSKA Moscow. Other things, but Bruges. Our current assistant manager, Mr. Van der Heyden, he played in that game for Bruges and maybe knows a bit about what happened with them in Marseille and the other game that helped put us out. But what a one to miss. But I thought to myself, I've been 52 in these group games at Ibrox, and I've only missed 5 of them. But I saw us 3 times. I saw us at Armida Bratislava. I saw us at the Nou Camp. I saw us in the Porto do Dragão, drawing 1-1 Ross McCormack, in Champions League group stage matches away from home. So that makes up for the 3 I didn't see during the COVID season, 3 group games I missed then. And twice I've seen Hearts at Murrayfield in the UEFA Cup group stage. They were playing, it was Ferencváros and Schalke 04. 2 sides who reached European finals who I hadn't seen in the flesh, so I had to see them. Took my chances. They happened to be at Murrayfield, so I wasn't taking a ticket off a Jambo, plenty of empty seats there. And they were on nights that Rangers weren't playing at Ibrox, so it was fantastic. In fact, we weren't playing at all. It worked out really well. So that's me. I've been to 52 European group games. Fantastic. That's kind of works out okay. Then I'm quite happy with that. And then I realised, no, I've spoiled that record because I went to one more. Bordeaux, Girondins Bordeaux. I'd never seen them in the flesh. They were runners-up in the 1996 UEFA Cup, lost to Bayern Munich in the final. And they turned up at a nearby stadium, a drivable stadium, and I got a ticket. I saw them at Anfield. I saw them against Liverpool at Anfield. So the one that spoils my record for having attended exactly 52, the number of group stage matches played at Ibrox, is the team that inflicted the worst ever European group stage result on Rangers. My worst night of football. I don't mind sometimes us losing the games and see a wee record, you see a class player, but I hate the fact that I saw certainly Mo Salah scoring the fastest hat-trick in Champions League history. That was absolutely horrendous, and because of everything we went through last season in that horrendous Champions League group stage, it was great that we got there though. It was great that we just got to that stage again for the first time since 2012. Since what we went through in 2012. For us tonight to be just completely reversing it. I know it's a tournament down. It's the secondary European tournament out of 3 in the Europa League. But for us to top the group, just absolutely fantastic. A great achievement. And I'm going to stop talking because I'm going to keep talking about European. For me, the greatest thing that ever, the most exciting thing probably that happened in all the group stage matches played at Ibrox over the years was the wee fella running out of the West Enclosure with a t-shirt with a picture of the Pope on it and handcuffing himself to the goalposts at the Broomlin end because we were playing Maccabi Haifa, and it was a pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli protest, and it confirmed a lot of my suspicions about folk in the West Enclosure. I just don't think they're as staunch as everybody else at Ibrox, but that was really exciting. It's been some cracking memories, and for Rangers to start it that era with an epic against Marseille and end it with a equally historic, fantastic, sensational win over Real Betis in the city of Seville has just cured so many ills and rounded it off oh so nicely. Rangers are the first Scottish team to reach a European final we've done so many amazing things in Europe that go, because Celtic won the European Cup. There's no doubt about it. Celtic won the European Cup is the number one achievement in the history of Scottish football. There's no two ways about it. I wouldn't argue with that. But I think a lot of times Rangers' achievements have been pro rata, pound for pound better. Particularly reaching that final in Seville a couple of years ago, given where Scottish football is in relation to the rest of Europe, in contrast to where it was in the 1960s. Scottish teams have reached 10 European finals, 5 times that was Rangers. And again, we are left representing. One little story, might as well, it's been a great night, I might as well just go the full 50 minutes. In that first ever European group stage that we played in 92-93, the Champions League, the second game we played was in Bochum, and it was against CSKA Moscow. The Russian winters meant they couldn't play us in Moscow, so we were playing in North Rhine-Westphalia in West Germany. We played them in Bochum, and that night, because the Champions League proper became a thing, we'd beaten Leeds United. I was at the game, the Battle of Britain game. I was getting at Ibrox where we beat Leeds. That was a great game. It's like we saw it as being the second round of the European Cup, but it turns out when you look back on it, as far as UEFA are concerned, it was a qualifier. It was a playoff for getting into the Champions League proper. And the Leeds had put out Stuttgart, and they conceded 3 goals in Stuttgart. Amazingly, my sister was at that game. She was working in Germany at the time. She went to that game and brought me back to the programme. But because Stuttgart didn't make it into the group stages, those goals didn't count in the Champions League proper. The first ever European Cup, Hibs were Scotland's representatives, and their first match was against Rot-Weiss Essen. They were the German champions in 1955. Hibs weren't the Scottish champions, that's another story. But they won 4-0 in the first leg in Essen, in West Germany. And Eddie Turnbull, the famous five, the Hibs famous 5 team, Eddie Turnbull scored the first goal that night. So he was the first person ever to score in the old European Cup on German soil, which is not considered in German football history. That's quite an achievement, a nice wee achievement. But Ian Ferguson, that heavily deflected goal against CSKA Moscow when we beat them 1-0 in Bochum, he's the first guy to score in the Champions League proper on German soil, another Scottish international. That's a wee coincidence I'd worked out for myself, and I was quite chuffed with that. And I would slip it into conversation every now and then, a real winner with the ladies. But what I hadn't realised was something that became apparent if you watched the Craig Houston podcast. The guy was the Sons of Truth fella, Craig Houston. He's got a great podcast. He interviews lots of famous Rangers people, and it's one with Gary Ralston, the fella that wrote the Gallant Pioneers book, and he's involved in the Scottish media, and he was just telling an anecdote about just the places that can get you, and I think how close he got to Rangers through his media work. And he was telling a story about the trip to Bochum, and he ends up on the team bus the day before when they're going for a training session in Germany, the day before they play CSKA Moscow in Bochum. And the story was how they turn up at the training facility, as he was calling it initially, and the gates aren't open. It's not open. There's no Janny or whatever there to let folk in, to let Rangers in. And Walter Smith's on the team bus, and Gary Ralston's on the team bus with Rangers, and he's on, Walter Smith is raging and all that. And I don't know what the end of the story was, but the thing he just mentioned this in passing, and it's what's jumped out, sent a cold shiver down my spine, was it was Essen, where they were going to train. Was in Rot-Weiss Essen have subsequently, since 1983, have moved stadiums, but the day before Rangers were playing CSKA Moscow in Bochum, they were supposed to be training at the very stadium on the very pitch where Eddie Turnbull was the first Scotsman to score on, and Eddie Turnbull became the first player to score on German soil in the European Cup. And then the next day, Ian Ferguson became the first. Anyway, that's enough from me. It's been an absolutely epic night. We'll come back at you probably tonight, Friday night, with the preview of the League Cup final, and I'll certainly be talking to you from outside Hampden after that on Sunday. Have a great Friday, have a great Saturday, folks, and just, yes, Rangers, we won in Seville.